and people will ask me on my chat here to send me whoever wants to ask a question, and I will unmute them, and then I'll move on to the next ones, and I think this will be a more organized way to do this thing.
Sure, yes.
And before we start, I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and whoever doesn't want to ask the question in English, please feel free to ask in Portuguese, and I can translate to Mark. I will record this this whole thing so I can send everyone afterwards, and then everybody makes sure that they can use their questions and their answers the best way they can. Okay?
Yes.
I'll admit Simone. I'll let Simone in, and then I can we can start. You can send me the questions on the chat. I'll be paying attention here. Just be patient, everyone, so I can see whoever asks first, and I'll unmute you guys. I just need a minute to let you to know who asked the question. But I think it will work.
Simone is already here?
Simone is joining.
Okay.
Hello, Simone.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
We have everybody here. Everybody's on mute. I'm sorry, I muted Mark. No, not.
Yeah, no problem. I can handle it here.
So thank you so much again. I already thank Mark for participating on this. Everybody really appreciates you spending some time to chat with us. And I'll try to organize the questions. Everybody will be asking me on chat, and I can unmute them one by one, so we don't get crazy here with everybody asking things at the same time. So I'm here, I'm waiting. Who wants to ask? Simone and Mark. I think that
Everybody's a little shy.
Everybody's shy, but well, Jair, you can start. Of course, you can start. Anybody can start. You can ask them.
Okay. Hi, Mark. Hi, Simone. I'm sorry. I'm looking most of the time this way because my display is here and my camera is in the other direction.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you guys for what is, in my humble opinion, the best album since at least Designer Universe. I want to thank, actually, Simone has retweeted my review, I think 2 days ago. It was, thank you very much, Simone. I want to ask about El Código Vital from Omega Acoustic. I think it sounds fresh, and the band sounds like having a lot of fun while doing that, in contrast to the more serious tone of the album itself. So, where did the idea from a Latino-styled version come from, and was Code of Life always the first first option for this style of song, or were there other songs that were considered for a Latino version? Thank you.
I think this was Kun's idea. It's also his song, like the album version. He's the musical composer for the song. And when we were discussing the options for which songs we're going to, record an acoustic version of, he said that he wanted to do like a salsa version and have a part of the lyrics translated in Spanish as well, which is the first time for us that we've done that. And I like it. It's actually totally different than the album version, and that's something we've done with a lot of the acoustic tracks, that we try to change them around. Like Abyss of Time was getting more that Irish touch to it than, of course, the song in the album already has that, but we adapted the title also to fit to the Irish. A lot of people, their last name is like O'Nally, O'Neill, O'Brien, and we named it Abyss O Time. And Rivers is the a cappella version, which I think is super beautiful. It's so simple, but it's like very intimate. And I listened to it again today, and it's like I get goosebumps from that. And Omega is also, it's totally different, but yeah, just doesn't matter if the song itself has like a good melodies. You can change it into any different style you like. And we are a metal band, but we like to have fun. And at the end of the recording process, which can be very tedious, it's nice to just use all the instruments that we find in the studio. And yeah, El Código Vital is like, you can shake your booty a little bit to it.
Thank you very much. Really nice.
Now I let Marcia ask a question. Go on, Marcia. Hang on.
Hi.
Yeah, you can do it now.
How did the idea of a partnership with the cellos of Apocalyptica and the support of the metal prog band will come up?
Mark?
Maybe everybody can say also to who they asked the question, then we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that for Mark or Simone, Marcia?
Oh.
Either one.
Whoever. Mark, Mark.
Okay. Yeah, we were looking for an interesting package for the tour, and Apocalyptica is one of those bands that we already for a long time wish to form a package with. And this time it worked out, and then both bands found each other and booked this extensive tour. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we had to postpone it. But hopefully, early 2020, we can finally make this happen. And the same for Wheel. We were looking for a cool band to conclude the package, and Wheel was one of the bands that we had on our list. And then we started checking the bands, and Wheel was the one that was most enthusiastic. So they became the one.
Angie, you can ask, and please tell us who you're asking the question to.
Sure. My question goes for both of you. I think you may have different answers, perhaps. So first of all, the album is amazing. I think that everyone agrees on that. And
Thank you.
And also, I wanted to apologize in advance, because I think that at this point there is no way I can ask you a question that no one has asked you already in other interviews. So I'm really sorry about that.
Oh,
but,
don't worry about that.
My question is: it's been 2 weeks today since Omega was released, and I wanted to know how's been the reception so far from your point of view. And also, if your expectations were met, if you were surprised by anything, like if your perception of the album changed after the release, because this is something that you had on your locker room for so long, like wanting to bring it to the world, and I just wanted to know that. That's a thing for you guys.
Shall I go first, Mark?
Yes, sure.
Well, the album, we are now in March, and last year, March, around the same time, we were supposed to record the vocals for it. So for us, we know the album since quite a long time. And when we decided to postpone the release of the album, it was a little bit bittersweet. Because, with each album, you're proud of it. It's your musical baby. You want to share it. You want to show it to everybody. And I had the music and the melodies stuck in my head, and I wanted to share it. And it felt like, you have Christmas, you have a lot of presents, but there's this one present that you cannot open yet. You have to wait. You have to be patient. So now 1 year later, the album is out, and I always had a good feeling about it. Like, to me, it's a very, it's kind of personal. It's very spiritual. I feel very much connected to it. So I guess it is a huge compliment and a little bit like a relief if a lot of people like it too, because it's always exciting. But first of all, I myself create the art. I sing what I feel like, what I find, what's personally my kind of taste. And if other people like it as well, it's amazing. So, but and the response so far has been crazy. I mean, since the release of Abyss of Time, our first single, so many fans and also journalists we talked with before the album was released, we got positive feedback. And it's also funny to hear that everybody has different favorite songs on the album as well. But I guess that's the strength of Epica, having 5 guys writing songs. So the music's very diverse and it has something to offer for everybody.
And
now
then
sorry, Mark.
Mark. No, Mark.
Yeah, because she wanted to know from both of us. So
Yeah.
I would like to add that I'm extremely proud of everybody involved on this album, because I really think that everybody gave themselves so 100% full of passion, and that become the result of Omega. And the response is also overwhelming. I was also having a good feeling, just like Simone, because when you have yourself already a good feeling, usually that means that it's going to be okay. But that this response was going to be so great, I couldn't even expect that. For example, I was already reading as a kid the Dutch metal magazine Aardschok, and we became CD of the Month in that magazine. And lately I saw many other magazines where we became CD of the Month. One recently in France, I think it was Rock Hard, and many others where we became CD of the Month. So apparently people love the album, and also the response what I got from fans, that people really enjoy the album. And what Simone says is many people have different favorites on the album. So some people love the skeleton key the most, and in some reviews some guys like it the least. So it's really funny that that some songs are really some people's favorites and some other people's least favorite at the same time. That I never can remember anything like that happening on any other album. And that means, I think, that every song finds some other people's other people's favorites. And really happy about that, because it's a very, very well balanced album, and we really try to find a well balance on it between the old Epica and new Epica. So I think everybody literally can find something of their pleasing on it, and I already said I'm really proud of it.
Thank you, Mark. Augusto is the next one. At least he's unmuted now. Go ahead, Augusto.
Thanks, Aldo. Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. It's Friday evening. Woo.
Yes, Friday. I want to know from you, what can you tell us about the principal difference between Epica from the beginning, from the first album, to Epica in Omega? Because for me, that I will be sincere with you guys. I'm not a huge fan of that from Epica, but Omega is a huge, huge album. Congratulations. That's why I want to know what can you say to us the principal difference between Epica from the beginning of your career to Epica in Omega nowadays. Thanks.
Was the question for Mark or me? I didn't hear.
For both of you. For both of you.
Even though almost 20 years have passed, of course we evolved as a band, as individuals, as musicians, or in my case, singer. I grew up with Epica. It's like my learning school, my university, and my job all in one. And I think Omega has some similarities to the early days of Epica, like, for example, the Oriental music. Song like Seal of Solomon brings me back to the early days of Epica. But Omega is very mature. It's like Mark says, it's well balanced. You can hear that the band has kind of evolved with each record, but with Omega we feel like grounded earth, with our personal lives, but also as musicians, as a band. We go through so many different phases and stages of your life, but also as a band, 6 people working together, 6 complete different people, characters. But yeah, I think it is day and night difference, but at the same time, it's also connected. The early days of Epica, and we bring our experiences, we bring our we evolve into what we are now, and that with each record we strive to be the best version of ourselves at that time. And I think, we succeeded with that without losing the Epica sound. We still have the elements that Epica is known for, but we also dare to experiment a little bit and add new, refreshing things as well.
Oh, there's nothing more to add to that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Next time you go first.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but you gave a good answer to everything I would have said too. And but for us, it's like we are inside the band. So for us, it's like we're wearing Epica. We're still an Epica. It feels more or less the same. We still have the same passion like we had in the early days. We still want to make the best possible album. So it's really hard to put yourself outside and look at yourself, how you feel about now and from the beginning. So it's like observing yourself from an outside perspective, which is weird in a way. But of course, like the early days, then you are like discovering the wheel, so to say, and now it's like finding ways to reinvent yourself and without repeating yourself, and that's something that we really always aim for in order to make albums that make a difference and not something that we have done already.
Next one is Gustavo. I'll just ask you guys to ask just one of them each question, so we can have more time and more questions, and then in the end you can ask the other member of the band if you haven't done yet. So we'll go back to the end of the line, okay? But now it's Gustavo Mayato.
Hello. Well, thanks for inviting me to this meeting. My question for Simon. Well, I want to ask about the song "Code of Life." You said that it's your favorite song of the band, right? And well, heavy metal in general has a tradition, some hits with Oriental scale, with Oriental approach, and the song "Code of Life" has this opening hit with Oriental approach. So I want to ask about the composition of this song, about this Oriental influences, and if you think that we can learn something from this Oriental way to see life, see future in general.
Code of Life was written, music was composed by Kun, and it has been one of my favorite songs since the beginning, like when we were still in the early stages of the writing process. I remember hearing the song for the first time. It was not finished. It didn't have like a bridge nor an ending to it. It was just the main theme, of course, the chorus and the intro, and I already started listening to the song on repeat, even though it wasn't finished yet, and I was really hoping for the song to be on the album. In the beginning of when we're doing the writing process, nothing is certain yet. Just everybody throws their ideas on the table or in the on the internet and exchange it via email or whatever. And so it has very much this old Epica feel to it. I mean, we have Fools of the Nations, Saivaldin, The Death of a Dream. We already had that influence in the early days of Epica, and it kind of drifted off, but for this record, it came back, and I resonate with that music very much. I also love to do the Oriental singing, the atmospherical singing, which I'm doing together with Zoher. I always mispronounce his name, from the Tunisian metal band Myrath, with whom we toured, and he's an expert at doing that. And I love that type of singing, and it's a very, like, a great way to carry your emotion. And whenever I'm recording that or singing in that style, I just improvise. And Joost, our producer, he takes the parts that he thinks fit the best, and he makes like this puzzle together with Zahir, and I just love this song. I mean, for me, songs they develop from demo stages till the end, and it can change. But this song was one of my favorites from the beginning, and I still have that connection to it. And my son loves that too. If we listen to the new album, he's like, "Yeah, I want to show whoever is at our house my favorite Epica song, and that's Code of Life."
Now, Marcus, I'm trying to unmute him.
Yeah. Hi
Yes,
guys.
go.
Are you listening?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me talk about almost continue from Augusto. For me, when I listen on the Omega for the first time, of course, this is an amazing album. But for me, the music from Epica changed a little bit. But what changed? For me, changed for better because it's like more, not clean. I will talk about the clean, but I don't know if it's the right word. You are more right on the way, more melodic, but the sound of Epica changed a little bit. For me, a lot from the holographic principle. And you almost changed my question because I think that your songwriting this album in this pandemic time, but you said was previous. And my question is, what changed in the Epica songwriters from the holographic principle to Omega? Why you change? Because for me, it's not like a two continuous album. Have more, like you said, 4 or 5 albums distance. I don't know you understand me, but this is my question.
Simone or Marcus?
For me, for Mark.
I think Mark is better, yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I agree with Marcus because the holographic principle, even though we really love the songs on the album, but we had the feeling that this album was a little bit hard to listen to from the beginning till the end because and we analyzed what could be the reason for that. And the main reason is that mixing-wise, everything is all the time full force, all together. And so on Omega, we have a completely different approach. And already we started with that during the writing process to have a much more balance on the album. So to have more the quiet parts and balance with the heavy parts. And therefore, the heavy parts sound already more heavy. But also to have a different approach with the mix. So sometimes giving the guitars the priority, sometimes the orchestra, instead of all the time everything together, because then actually the guitars for that reason get a little less heavy and the orchestra is less in your face as well. So like this, it's a win-win situation, and also overall sound benefits from it because therefore when you listen to the album from beginning till the end, it's much easier for the ears to process. And melodic-wise, we aimed for an album that had quite some songs that if we play, for example, on a festival, that people who don't know the band would already like headbang along with our new songs, because we noticed that songs like, of course, obviously Cry for the Moon, but also Beyond the Matrix, when we play them for a crowd that don't know Epica, they already really get in songs from the first listening. And so we try to focus on having a few more of these tracks. And also the difference of way of working with the holographic principle was that now we got together in 1 week in the Netherlands and physically together and working on each other's tracks. And so our producer was there too. And so it was a very pleasant way of working together, eating together, really like team building, and at the same time working on these tracks. And I have the feeling that here we made a difference by the next 10% of our tracks. We lifted them up to the next level, and we definitely keep on doing that also for a future album, because we really love working like this.
Okay, William, you're next.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, Simon. Hello, Mark. Can you listen to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think this This question goes to Mark too. I wish to speak about freedom wolves with him. The lyric speaks of the internal fight between two wolves, if I'm not wrong. One representing our evil and melancholic side, and the other representing the joy and perseverance. And I coincidentally read a similar story in the book for these days, The Courage to be Disliked, which makes me remember too much this song. And so I ask you, how important are literature and philosophy from Epka?
Good question, and very important to start with. Both Simone and I, we wrote this lyric together, by the way. That was the lyric on the album that we did together. And we both are very interested also in old mythology and old wisdom teachings, philosophy. And this is one of the stories, indeed, I stumbled upon when I was digging into an old story about a Cherokee teaching this lesson to his grandson. And I was so moved by the story, and I could so recall that feeling about these two wolves within, because we all have these wolves within. And some of us are a little bit ashamed of the dark wolf, but it's part of us, and there's no way we have to be ashamed of that. It's who we are. We humanity, we all have this dark side. And by pushing it away, actually, it comes to the surface sooner or later anyway. But when you feed the positive wolf more than the negative wolf, at least that one becomes the dominant one. And then you become a person that people like to be surrounded with, instead of a negative person who feeds the other wolf more. And so it's all a choice for each and every one of us who we want to be, which wolf we want to feed more than the other.
Well, thank you very much. Great answer.
Thank you too.
Daniel?
Hi, hi Simone, hi Mark, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to talk. It's a pleasure to talk with you both again, and nice to be with all those friends that I would like to meet again in some concert. Most of all, know each other. But my question goes to Mark. You said you were reinventing yourself a few questions ago. Omega is also the last letter of the Greek alphabet. And sometimes it's almost a synonym for end, the end of something. Everyone hopes and knows that this is not your last album, but does it represent a point in your career or in your life or anything when you stop something and start again? And just one observation, I think that I heard some more of Mark Goodrell's roles than before. Am I wrong?
Yeah, and that was not a conscious decision. It happened to be. We put usually, like always, grunts wherever we feel like. It's not something we overthink. It's just something that happens, going with the flow. And sometimes it's a bit more, sometimes a bit less. It's not like a conscious direction that we want to keep developing. It can be the next album that it's less again. But whatever the songs ask for, that direction we go. And to answer your other question about Omega, initially Omega was referring to the Omega point theory, and that's a theory that states that we, as mankind, as whole universe, so to say, are fated to swirl towards one point of unification. And we thought that it was a really beautiful concept to present on this album, and Omega is referring to the Omega point. But the Omega point we thought was not such a strong album title, so we derived it to Omega. But at the point when we wrote the lyrics, we didn't know the pandemic would hit. And obviously already now that we know that it's going to be a huge turning point for humanity as well, because it has a big impact. So either way, Omega, the album, will be has been released in a big time period for mankind. Something big is happening. And we hope all that it's going to be for the good, that after this pandemic, that we find a better way to live in harmony with nature. That's what we're all hoping for. So, it's not going to be our last album. At least that's not what we want. But hopefully it's the end of an era and the beginning of a beautiful new time.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mark, I'll translate a question that I have sent, that was sent by Anna. she sent it in Portuguese, and I'll translate it to you. Okay.
Yes.
Anna asked about Epica, the sound of the band. It's has a very peculiar sound, and how would you compare the sound that you do with the other progressive bands from the 70s that use kind of the same elements on their music? Are they a big influence for you? Do you see a parallel between what you do and those progressive rock bands did in the 70s?
I definitely see some parallels because I listen a lot of old rock bands myself. Pink Floyd is my all-time favorite, and I love especially the really rock classics from the 70s that like Child in Time and Hotel California, Bohemian Rhapsody. So these kind of tracks have had a huge influence on me as a musician, and also on us as a band. For example, Rob, he's a very big fan of bands from that era. So he's for sure even more influenced by it than all of us together probably. But yeah, these bands have one way or the other a huge impact on our sound. Even though if many new young kids maybe don't realize that, but for sure the basis of our band, we're standing on shoulders of giants, so to say, and these bands that they have created the sound for us to do what we are doing today.
Fantastic, thank you, Mark. Rogerio is the next one. Go ahead.
Hi, Simone.
Hi.
Simone, Chord of Life is my favorite too.
Good choice.
Mark, Hunaku from Concite Oblivion talks about a central point of Earth, and for someone, it's talk about God. And Omega talks about a point of unification. Are there any connections in these themes or albums?
Yeah, I think it's a recurring theme over many albums, but there's always a different viewpoint, so a different point of observation. For example, Hunaku was related to the Mayan culture and the way the Mayans looked at life. And now the Omega album is more of a spiritual album, diving into Gnostic beliefs and also the Emerald Tablets. And also, like the Omega point has a Christian roots from a Christian priest. So it's always different kinds of ways of observation, and some call it God, some call it all ever lasting consciousness. It's just a way of naming the same thing in general. And I personally, I believe that there's more between heaven and earth. I believe that our true essence is what is infinite, and that our brief time on earth is just the manifestation of matter, what we truly are, which is our essence. It's so to say a kind of beautiful dream. In most cases, a beautiful dream, because some people are really suffering a lot the whole life. But in general, I think it's a dream where we can observe consciousness, basically observing itself, and yet. So, like I said, it's from every album is watching towards it in a different way, from a different perspective, from a different cultural background.
Okay, thanks.
Marcia?
According to his press office, you recently launched a store for merchandising and ticket sales at the Galeria do Rock in São Paulo. Tell us your expectations about this initiative.
Yeah, that was, I don't know whose idea that was. We just found out that we're going to have our own pop-up shop in Sao Paulo, and Epica is, of course, honored by that. It's the first time we actually have a pop-up shop. I mean, we don't have shows now, so we can't sell our merchandise. And we have a very big Epican family in Brazil. So I think Brazil is the good country to try that. I have honestly no idea how it's going. If people are actually going there shopping, but I've seen photos. It looks amazing. It's of course it's a pop-up shop. It will. I don't know how long it will actually be there, but yeah, it's. I guess it's first of all a great honor to have a pop-up shop like that, and we want to come over to Brazil in December. So it is, yeah, it's a way to kind of connect the fans also.
Augusto, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Nando. Mark, for you, guy. In the course of Omega, we can listen to to a lot of progressive parts together within extreme parts. Please, how could you join these in a so unique way? Because it's a thing that caught my attention in this album. Okay, how could you join this? How can you join all those influences in songs that it always make it seem so natural? But I think that was difficult. Can you explain it to us, please?
Yeah, sure. For example, if you take a song like Kingdom of Heaven, which has quite some progressive parts, yeah, it's a very long process from the beginning of writing such a song till the end. And if I take that song, for example, I started together with Isaac. We worked like back and forth, sending each other files. And then at a certain point, we started working on it with the whole band, including with producer Joost. And then we dive really into detail, and then we weight every part, we see what we can improve and how we can make transitions better. And then at a certain point, we start recording it in a demo version. So with all kinds of samples that later on will be played by the orchestra. And then we have, at a certain point, we have recorded the whole track the way we want it to be. And then it sounds probably to many people already pretty good. But then we actually start recording it for real. And so before we start recording it for real, every detail is already discussed and we know exactly what's going to happen. And I think that's the reason why it sounds so natural, because nothing will catch us by surprise anymore. And because in the early days, sometimes we went to the studio and we didn't know exactly what direction some of the songs would go, or the drummer would on spot do something different than we agreed in the rehearsal room. So then sometimes these things happen, but that nowadays we know exactly once we start recording what's going to be done. Just sometimes some little things with the vocals and lyrics will change here and there, but that's basically it. All the rest musically is already totally fixed.
Daniel, you're next.
Me? Okay, I'll take the time. This time I'll ask to Simone. Simone, you have during the show in Fortaleza, we had a power outage, and you had and you sang a song recording. I would like to know if you have had any experience like that before. If you remember Fortaleza, what happened in Fortaleza? A power outage, you sang only one song. Only you and Cohen and everybody with the I would like to know if you had any experience like that before and would share with us anything
yes.
like that.
That was a very spontaneous moment. I mean, we've had like electricity shutting down. We've had that before, and we had to, we didn't know what we were going to do. There wasn't even any lights. It was not that maybe, one part wasn't working, but everything was gone. So I then came up with the idea, okay, maybe we should just do Solitary Ground. I know that that's a very popular ballad of Epica, and a lot of people know the lyrics too. So yeah, we just did like a cappella Solitary Ground with the audience. And I asked everybody to turn on the flash on the phone so we could see. And I mean, that was definitely a live show. I mean, an improvised, trying to make the best out of the situation, and a lot of fans actually loved that. I mean, we had another experience once that was in the Netherlands. We went on stage, and during the first song, everything was shut down because of the construction of the venue was very new. The smoke of on the stage was going into the elevator or something, causing the fire alarm to go off. So we go on stage, we're pumped, we're full of adrenaline, the first song, and then poof, everything is silent. And then we had to go off stage again and go back on, and that felt like Spinal Tap. But that happens. But for Celeste, like you said, we had a good solution and it worked out really well. And I like those kind of moments actually because they're unexpected and you have to go with the flow.
It was very special, and I said in my video that it was not something that it was somebody shut down constantly. It was very special.
Guilherme?
So first of all, good afternoon, guys. And my question is for Mark. So Mark, I would like to know in Epica concerts, so if you have a preference in using analog pedals or digital equipments like Fractal or Kemper, and if you have any preference between one and another, why do you prefer?
Yeah, first of all, I wasn't always a fan of digital amps, but since we use Positive Grid, that's the first thing that really convinced me. And so we use Positive Grid, but I must say when we do a live show and we discuss with the sound engineer and we did A/B comparison, the sound engineer said he still preferred the real amp. And so the sound is what counts the most. So we play as often as we can still on the real thing. And but for our own in-ear system, the digital one is very stable. So I prefer to on my own in-ear system. So what I hear while I'm playing, to hear the digital amp, because it's always the same wherever we play in any hall. It's always a stable sound. Because with a real amp in every hall is a little bit different. So then when you use your mix setup for the in-ears, then you always have to adjust a lot. But when you use your digital amp, then it's always, you arrive and right away you have your sound, and you only have to adapt the drums and a bit and the vocals, because the vocals always sound also different. So it's more easier to control. But I'm a really a guy who loves the real thing. So whenever the real thing is still better for the sound engineer, I listen to him.
I have a question from Anna from Cria do Rock. I will translate again to Simone, please. She asked you, since you joined the band when you're 17 years old, and now you're a woman, more mature woman, how do you see the participation of women in metal today?
I think that it's been more like a revolution and evolution. More female singers are on stage, not only female singers, but also instrumentalists, and I think that's a great thing. I mean, in order to be a musician, your gender should not play any role. It's your passion, your talent, and and hard work, I guess. When I started off, there were not that many female vocalists, and I am very thankful for singers like Anneke and Daria, Christina, but also singers in the rock scene that kind of paved the way for women to enter the metal scene. And it's, I guess, still kind of a minority, but I don't feel that myself. I don't feel disrespected. I don't feel like I'm not being heard at all. And I can just advise any other women out there that want to make it in the music scene. I think the metal scene is one of the safest, most respectful music scenes there is for women, compared to if you were to dive more into the pop music scene. There is definitely more inequality than there is in the metal scene.
I can add to that Charlotte of XD Lane, Charlotte Wessels, she wrote on her Instagram she said, when was the last time somebody asked, how is it to be a man in a metal band?
Yeah, that is indeed a question that's asked a lot.
But I just saw it like yesterday or something, so it
yeah, I saw it too.
came to my mind.
William, you're next.
Okay, Diane. I think this time I will speak with Simone, if you don't mind. Well, in 2 years from now, Epica will complete 20 years of activity. And for the band's 10th anniversary, we released a remarkable record, and I particularly consider retrospect one of the greatest moments of the band. What I want to know is, for this awaited second decade anniversary, what we can expect?
Yeah, 20 years. That sounds like a really, really long time. Even that makes me feel old, you know. Like starting at 17, now I feel like 70. If you say Epica has been around for 20 years, but I started really young. And retrospect was definitely a milestone in our career. 10 years of Epica now, soon it will be 20 years. But the pandemic kind of ruined a lot of things for a lot of bands and for us. I mean, by the time that we have our 20th anniversary, that's when we go back on tour to promote Omega, hopefully. I mean, everything had kind of got put on hold. But we do love to celebrate whenever we can in order to, you know, say thanks to our amazing Epica family. And I mean, with Design Universe, when that album had the 10-year anniversary, we like to do something special. So we don't have anything concrete planned now, but that can change. It's just everything is kind of tricky at the moment to plan because of the pandemic. So we're always like, we have to be flexible, we have to be kind of spontaneous. It's very difficult to plan very far ahead in the future, and that was something we didn't have any problems with in the past. This is a very unique, weird situation, but we will not let that moment go by silently. I will promise that.
Okay, thank you.
Angie, you're next.
So, my question is for Mark specifically, if you guys think that's okay. You have stated several times that Omega is a new balance album. You were like very careful in putting the right elements, the right amount of each sound, of every element and everything. So we have touring dates for the end of this year. Hopefully, we're all rooting for that to happen. And I was wondering if for Omega being a more balanced and maybe a little bit less complex album to play live, if you think that will change the dynamics on stage, how do you imagine that? And if you are planning to bring other elements besides the music into your show, since you may have a little bit more of freedom to do that, perhaps, because the music will not be like an element that is like taking all of your attention 100% of the time during the live presentation.
Yes, it might sound easier, but it's still difficult to play, I must say. I'm studying quite a few songs lately, and I'm sweating my ass off on these songs. So it will take a while, I think, before I can run around and don't having to think about what I'm playing anymore. For example, if I compare the songs on the earlier albums, there are some straightforward songs that is pretty easy to play, to be honest. But since Isaac joined the band, he's an amazing guitar player, and he's using all his skills. And so I have to meet up with this level nowadays to be able to play all that stuff. So it's a nice challenge, and since that I started learning his technique, I grew a lot also as a guitar player. So I'm really thankful to him for that. And but it's quite challenging stuff here and there. So I think that people who are gonna figure out what the songs, the guitar players, that they're gonna have a good time in these.
Air, go ahead.
Okay, hi again. This one I believe is more for Marcus. Simone already answered something that I would ask. Since at least Quantum Enigma, if I'm not mistaken, the band has been using real orchestral instruments instead of the synthetic sounds of the first albums. I would like to know if that changes in any way your approach to how you're composing. You're already thinking that I'm going to have violin and violas and whatever else you would have in an orchestra, or is this an afterthought?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. For me, it doesn't make much of a difference. I still write my part of the songs the way I always do, and then later on we start thinking and how the orchestra is gonna play it. Because I never studied music in general, so I have no idea actually what I'm doing. I just do everything on by feeling. And I also have no idea when I arrange stuff if the flute if it's in the range of the flute or not. So there's other people in the team who take that part of the job, and that's amazing because once we bring all the arrangements to the orchestra to play, and it's 2 weeks even to all write all the down for sheet music, but then everything is into detail there, prepared for them to play. And then when you hear your arrangement that you've made on your computer coming to life with a real orchestra, I can assure you that's a real goosebump moment. Because when you're yourself in your home studio with your little keyboard making that stuff, and then you hear it suddenly by the Prague Symphony Orchestra being played, it's like overwhelming.
Now, Rogério. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, guys. Simone, you and Mark are the main composers of Omega. How to write together in this pandemic period?
Well, I think everything for Omega was finished before the pandemic hit. So we, I mean, I write the lyrics, I don't write any of the music, but Mark and I, we discuss, when we have the final selection of the songs, we discuss who writes the lyrics for which song. And for Mark, it's always very, it's obvious that the songs he musically composed that he is going to write the lyrics for. And this time with the demo sessions that we had together with Joost in the house when we were working on vocals, we were trying to go already in a direction with the working vocals or the working lyrics that back in the day were just a little bit like nonsense lyrics, just to carry the melody. This time we already pushed it a little bit in the direction that we wanted the songs to be about, topic-wise. And that is always a very natural process. We both are very open about the songs, the ideas that we have for the lyrics, without giving each other limitations. So it's always a very natural, easy process to do that. And the only problem we had because of the pandemic was that Mark and I were the last in the line of the production, recording the vocals. And but luckily Mark could record it at his home studio, and I found the studio close by as well. So we were not that much affected by the pandemic. If it hit later, we would have had a problem. I don't know if we would have been able to finish Omega because of the orchestra and the choir. So we were kind of lucky. We were almost finished on time.
Marcos, Frank.
Hey Mark, hey Simone. I'm like the cuckoo in this nest, like the invited guest from Maryland. And I work for Blast magazine. I did an interview with you, Simone. And this is more a feedback question about, you said that it was easy for you to do the song Abyss of Time. And I said, oh my God, what was hard for her on this record? And, and I was wondering if this was easy for you, if you are thinking maybe of searching something more challenging for your voice someday, like Floor did, like for Revamp, for example.
But there are some parts on the album that I had difficulties with timing-wise. Like at the end of the main vocal recordings, that's when I do lead or like blend in vocals for the choirs. So sometimes I have like a very clear lead on top of the choirs, but I record all of them so that Joost can still use the sound, the color of my voice to blend in with the choir, to make it sound a little bit more like my voice. And there's, I think it is Kingdom of Heaven. There's one choir part that comes very abruptly, and I was in the studio, like Joost was like, no, it's so many beats. And I was so distracted by the music, and I couldn't hit that moment. And he's like, "Yeah, let's just leave it." And it was not a vocal challenging thing. It was the balance and harmony as above, so below. But the moment that was hitting in the music, I was like, I always missed it. So we laughed about it. And we were like, "Yeah, we have the choir there. We don't have to do it." So yeah, but overall, for me, the only challenging part was the timing of the recording and the unusual circumstances of recording at a different studio. And I have recorded at many different studios, but the Sandlane studio where Joost is working is like my second home. And it was the beginning of the pandemic. I had my friends from other bands returning from tours. They had to cancel tours. A lot of people were running into financial problems already, and I was worrying a lot about the future of the music. That was more like an emotional challenge for me to disconnect from that and just focus on the music. But and back in the beginning, I was thinking our tour is going to be in October, the album's going to be out in September. We are safe, but I was very naive, like thinking like that. And I had some sleepless nights. I always had like a little car accident because of that. Those were the only challenges for me. I mean, the singing, the music, the lyrics, everything was like the way it should be. I was, I was very happy to finally record the vocals, and it was kind of a little challenge searching for a different studio, also having your child at home, no school, everything was like very weird. But I was happy to be able to sing the songs already for the demo and the writing sessions that we had. I could sense, like Mark said, like this is going to be a piece of work we're very proud of. And yeah, I guess when you're convinced about whatever you're doing, it makes the job easier.
Thank you, Simone. I suppose this was the favorite moment of everyone in the press conference when you sang for 2 seconds. Everybody was delighted. So we have time for 2 more questions. Gustavo now and Guilherme will do the last. And before we finish, thank you so much for taking time to chat with all these guys. I know these guys, they do a fantastic job. They are desperate to see you playing live again. And it's an honor for me to mediate these amazing people and all their questions. Thank you, guys.
Thanks to all of them, too.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, Gustavo.
Okay, well, Simone, this is for you. Well, do you think that Epica fulfills all your musical ambitions as a composer, or what do you think about having a solo career? How would this hypothetical solo career sound?
I have a very wide musical taste, something I have faced criticism for, which I myself don't understand. I am a very open-minded person, and I love music for the emotions. It doesn't matter which genre it is. If I like the melody, if I like the vocals, if I find a connection to it, there's no shame in saying that I like to listen to singers in the pop scene, or I like jazz. I love Disney movies. But I'm not a fan of Frozen. I will honestly say that. That's not my cup of tea. I'm the old Disney princess. So singing for me in a movie one day, would be something which is on my bucket list. I often receive positive feedback whenever we do ballads, that a lot of fans say that, you know, that is kind of my strength. So I would definitely love to do a solo record one day, but I'm feeling, you know, I don't feel that Epica is not challenging me enough. I do try with each record to get the best out of myself for the music, and I love to work with other artists as well. Something new, like I work with Arjen Lucassen quite a lot, which is really nice as well. And I have so many ideas of what I could do, like vocally. So I've been saying I want to do a solo project for so many years now, but still not much has happened. Epica has my main priority, my family, and I very strongly believe in what's meant to be is meant to be, and will also have, you know, the law of attraction. Things will happen at the right time, and as long as I have a voice, I will keep on singing. Metal has my heart, but it can be also jazz or classical, and yeah, we'll see what the future brings.
Guilherme, the last one.
Thank you, Nando. So now my question is for Simone. So my question is about the interpretation of the concept art from Omega. So the cover of the album Omega shows a woman holding a golden key, some guys inside the labyrinth, and there's a guy in front of the labyrinth that looks he's getting out of the labyrinth, or he gave up to get inside. There's a guy on a look like a dead tree or something. It looks like he's praying or something like this. And my question, so could the interpretation of the concept art be like, life sometimes is a labyrinth and we can lose ourselves inside of it, and there's a key that will help us to get out and we must look for it. Could be the interpretation be like this of the concept art?
Yes, I guess that's one way to interpret it. When we work with Stefan Heilemann again for the artwork, and he's been with us since 2009, since the Classical Conspiracy. He's a good friend of mine, and the little guy that you see on the cover is a little woman actually, but it's hard to see. That is actually Stefan Heilemann's wife. She often is like also a model for his art, and yeah, one of the lines in Mark's lyric is "Life's a labyrinth, find your way home." So everybody has this labyrinth within themselves. We are trying to navigate through. Sometimes you do get lost in life. Also, like with rivers, you feel like you're drowning in the river and you have to fight. You know, you have to stay focused and don't be distracted, and try to, you know, reach out the other end of the labyrinth, being spiritually enlightened in a way. So that's, and there's of course always a lot of symbolism in the artwork, but we don't want to give away everything. I think that's the beauty of art as well. People can interpret it in their own way, but I think it's kind of obvious. You already interpret it really well.
Great, thank you.
Excellent, everyone. Thank you once again. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Simone. We love Epica in Brazil, and love appreciate the hard work you do every time you release a new album and every time you come and play in Brazil. So we look forward to seeing you guys, and really, really hope that you're able to come and visit us in December.
Let's hope so, yes. Thank
Yes.
you all very much, guys.
Obrigada. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Não sei, já pronto.